So guys, I know that you love podcasts. You're listening to one right now, but there's another one that I want you to check out, and it has really caught my attention. It's called Joculation. That's Joculation for those that are looking to type it out. So what this is, it features original comedy based off current events from some of the weird news sections like Toronto Sun, Daily Star, the LAD Bible, etc. This show has over 100 episodes, and it really is a must listen. And in their latest episode, they were talking about a woman who was threatening to burn down a pub at a Christmas event with Santa and his reindeer. She was an animal rights activist. You really got to check this out. Again, guys, it is hosted by LP Faust. It's called Joculation. And what I want to do is give you a quick 30-second sample of this show, and I'd really encourage you go and check it out. You can find them, by the way, everywhere podcasts are available, all the major platforms like Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeart, Overcast, Downcast, etc. So check it out. I'm also putting a link to the show in the description of this episode. So take a listen to this, guys. It's called Joculation. Go check it out, and here it is.
So apparently Martha Stewart, she now has come into a new television show because Martha needs money. At one point, Martha's walking around with a ruler measuring like forks and knives, the distance from like spoons and cups and soup bowls and all that stuff. I'd rather it be a tablescape, ladders, and chairs match. That's what I'm thinking, bro. Have somebody come into the ring with a foreign object, maybe take the steel chair and slap it across Martha Stewart's face. That would be excellent, okay? Tablescapes, ladders, and chairs match. Oh, my.
This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my idol. You're going to acknowledge me.
All right, everybody, guys and girls, welcome back to another edition of the SmackDown Review right here on the WWE Podcast Network. As always, I am one of the hosts of this show, Michael Ritter. You can find me on Twitter at Michael5Ritter, and also one of the hosts of the Football Function podcast, available on all of your podcasting platforms, including the one that you're likely listening to this episode on, including on Patreon if you prefer an ad-free experience. But joining me on today's episode, like usual, my co-host, John Carrasco. You can find him on Twitter at Big Speaker. That's BIGG_Speaker. John, how you doing?
I am doing pretty good. And, of course, it is a good day to be here. I know it is kind of late for this episode to be coming out. But, yeah, up here in Punkytown, I am enjoying it. And, of course, we do have a guest.
Yes.
Charlie. He was out at the past live show here in Chicago and everything like that. So how you doing, Charlie?
I'm doing good, man. Hanging in there and living the dream.
Hey, that's what I like to hear. I am obviously a little bit jealous. I love anytime, I get to go to SmackDown or any type of live event. Anytime you go to a wrestling show in general, it's a damn good time. Nonetheless, going to a show like SmackDown, which you got to see a lot more than a typical SmackDown. We won't get into too much of that just to kind of, spare the listeners and, spare spoilers and all that good stuff. But needless to say, everybody who was at attendance in the SmackDown last night that aired on December 16th, 2022 from Chicago, Illinois, they were treated with a little bit of like a bonus. They got to see some stuff that got taped and all that good stuff. But in terms of the actual SmackDown that was aired, it was still a pretty entertaining show. A lot of long wrestling matches, some storyline development, some very good stuff from some segments that I'm particularly interested in. So I am looking forward to getting your in-person perspective and obviously just your opinion on all the good stuff that we're going to talk about tonight. But I am curious. I had not listened to the Raw review. Just go ahead and admittedly get that out of the way. So this is my first time really getting a chance to catch up with you. So I'm sure you've already prefaced this and I'm sure you've already told the listeners, but if you want to go ahead and just catch me up, how did you become a wrestling fan? Like, what is your wrestling backstory, I guess you could say?
Well, I've been a wrestling fan since literally the day after I was born. My dad would, if you have kids, parents tell their children bedtime stories. My dad always used to tell me bedtime stories with a twist. Like he would, for an example off the top of my head, he wouldn't always tell the story of David and Goliath, but he would turn it a little bit to make it the story of Andre and Hogan at WrestleMania 3.
Yeah. I mean, it's always good to have a, I guess, a family connection like that, because it does make it a little bit more like special. The nostalgic memories do mean a little bit more, I guess you can say, whenever they have that type of attachment. So I was just curious. Everybody has their own story and, their own, I guess, path that they took to where they are as a wrestling fan, especially if you're going to shows. If you're going live to shows and, actually meeting superstars and all that stuff, you're doing it different. Like, there are, I guess, levels, you could say, to wrestling fandom. Excuse me. But I am looking forward to talking to you, though, about this SmackDown that aired, because it was a pretty good one, like I said. So we'll go ahead and get in here to the first segment, at least that we saw. And it was this women's tag team match for the tag team championships. Liv Morgan and Tegan Nox versus Damage Control. And the match itself, it's kind of, I mean, there were a couple spots you could nitpick, like the Liv Morgan grabbing the kendo stick going into the ring, and Tegan Nox basically having to hold her back, and then eventually that causes Tegan Nox to get hit from behind. That right there was kind of cringe. Just the I guess the execution of it, not necessarily the plan itself, but just it looked bad. It looked pretty poorly. But that was the TV version that we saw. I'm sure it might have looked a little bit different for you, but the match does take a little bit of a twist. Tegan Nox, Liv Morgan, they seem bound and determined to win this bad boy. And out of nowhere, some hooded figure comes, takes Tegan Nox on the outside. That allows Io Sky and Dakota Kai to retain their championship. So I guess so close, but not close enough for Tegan and Liv. Obviously, the assist from who we end up finding out was Xia Li. Exactly. Yes, I'm glad you had that right there. But what did you think about this match being there in attendance?
To be honest, I really had no interest. I mean, granted, the match was a lot better than I thought it was going to be, but for every time I see a women's tag match, my expectations are pretty much about as high as the ground.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, I mean, it's what you're expected. I mean, I guess, like, it's what we are to expect is what I should say. Just given what WWE has fed us over the years with this tag team division, it's almost non-existent. Like, you could almost, you could forget at any given moment who the champions are. Of course, it won't take you long to remember, but if you're kind of just, in the middle of a conversation and somebody says, hey, who's the women's champions in WWE? It might take you a little bit. You have to rattle your brain like, oh, yeah, that is Damage Control. They're not really featured. They don't talk about the championships a whole lot. But I guess it just sometimes whenever you put championships on in a faction that gets a lot of airtime, sometimes the championships, I guess they kind of take a little bit of a backseat, and you could, I guess, say that that's happened somewhat with Damage Control here, but they do retain their championships. I don't really understand the Xia Li interference there. I'm not sure if she's going to be another member. Do you expect that to happen, John?
I didn't get the whole involvement from her. I guess you could say. I mean, I guess it kind of just brings her to our attention to kind of maybe throw her into a match with Tegan. I guess you could say, kind of start a little storyline there. But I didn't get it. I do like the tag team of Liv and Tegan though. It feels like they're kind of just meshing kind of well and everything like that. Liv, she got some, or it sounded like she got some pretty nice pop out there in Chicago. If I was correct, Charlie.
She did.
Yeah, so I feel like her being tagged with Tegan, I guess that gives her some good exposure and everything like that. So the way that they brought Tegan in, or Tegan Nox into me, I mean, it definitely drilled into my brain, I guess you could say. So that was a good push for her.
Yeah, and there's obviously chemistry there with these two. You could see it's basically jumps off the screen, or at least their in-ring work. Clearly, like I said, there are some things you could nitpick, but we're not going to nitpick right now. We're going to move on to another segment. Backstage, we get a little bit of Uso, Sami Zayn. They're kind of talking backstage. They're looking at Sami Zayn's outfit, his fresh new little hairdo that he has with his tight bun up top. And then after Sami Zayn kind of leaves the locker room, we get the Usos having a little one-on-one conversation, and they're asking themselves, did we set Sami Zayn up for disappointment? Is Roman Reigns really going to, take the honorary out of the equation and just make him an official Uso, make him Sammy Uso? And there's a lot of hesitancy there. I don't really know. In the crowd around you, were there any discussions amongst other WWE fans? Was there anything that or I guess, what was the vibe to this dynamic with Sami Zayn not necessarily breaking through that wall just yet to be an Uso?
We were all expecting the bloodline to turn on him finally. And unfortunately we didn't get our hopes, and we got our hopes and dreams shattered. But yeah, everybody was expecting last night to be the night that they finally turn on him.
That is pretty crazy that I guess a majority of people would expect that. Like me personally, I didn't think that would happen just yet, especially just, with what ended up happening later in the show. They're clearly going to milk this a little bit, at least through the end of the year. Had there been a pay-per-view closer than the Royal Rumble, like this huge gap from Survivor Series War Games at the end of November, no pay-per-view in December, and then obviously the Royal Rumble being at the very end of January, there's a huge gap, so they have to kind of drag this stuff out. I don't anticipate any big turns or returns or anything like that to happen in between. I think with the Royal Rumble so close, they're going to want to save all their chips. They want to keep everything in the bag, so once the Royal Rumble gets here, they can dump it all out and let basically say, hey, here's what we got going on right now for 2023. It's going to be a damn good year for WWE. That's my expectation. That's kind of the hopes that I have with every storyline, this one included. I guess that's why you see big time matches announced for actual SmackDown in the coming weeks, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But I do expect this to go on a little bit. I think that they're going to kind of continue to take these baby steps, this slow burn approach, and get us there. At some point we will get there, especially just with rumored Royal Rumble matches and rumored WrestleMania matches and things like that. It's hard not to have those things pop up on your timeline from time to time. So you do kind of see possibilities and angles that WWE could take this. So you do expect it to go on for a while. But what do you think, John?
Yeah, I think there is plenty of ways that you can move with this storyline. The thing that got me hooked on it is now it's Jimmy, the one that's starting to question Sam and everything like that, being that he was the one that kind of was the welcomer at the beginning of all this, and then it's kind of weird that the relationship between him and Solo have been completely mute, I guess you could say. It doesn't seem like really Solo's involved with the whole Uso thing, I guess you could say. So yeah, it definitely got me interested.
Yeah, you really haven't seen anybody break in a while. How that was kind of a thing that we'd see on a weekly basis is Sami Zayn and his punchlines and just everything that he says would get other members of the bloodline to break and just basically laugh on camera. You haven't seen that in quite a long time. So
yeah, and I was gonna say it does feel like he's starting to tiptoe on glass. Every slight move that he can make is definitely going to be questionable from here on out.
Yeah, without a doubt. Another storyline though that is taking the slow burn approach, and we're starting to see it unfold before our very eyes, is the LA Knight stuff. And they kind of start this one off. There's footage shown of LA Knight being held hostage backstage. Because with the way that storyline played out last week in that segment is LA Knight went to a locker room. He saw the shirt there that obviously belonged to Bray Wyatt or whatever. It had that logo on it. And the lights turned out. He pulled out his phone flashlight and was looking around. He sees somebody there with a mask, and that's pretty much all we saw. Well, apparently there was a QR code. That's what Michael Cole and company were saying. And the QR code showed a video of LA Knight being held hostage backstage with his mouth taped, and there's a mask over his face. But like I said, that was footage from last week. So this week, LA Knight comes out. He calls out Bray Wyatt. He calls his bluff again and demands that he comes to the ring, which Bray Wyatt does. And he reiterates that it wasn't him. He hasn't laid a finger on him. And he just wants to tell LA Knight, hey, you're barking up the wrong tree here. You really are. I have not touched you. You have the wrong idea here. Eventually, Bray does get in the ring, and he's attacked by LA Knight. Just basically starts taking it to him in the turnbuckle there. And then Uncle Howdy shows up on the Jumbotron and then in person, basically confirming that Bray Wyatt has been telling the truth and it wasn't him. I'm curious about this. This was the one segment that I wrote down I needed to get your in-person experience for this. Number one, Bray Wyatt's entrance, his walk up to the ring, that visual with the smoke and that spotlight that was on him. It had a different aesthetic on TV. Even in the ring, LA Knight, it just had a glow to it. And just the Uncle Howdy appearance in general, just the vibe in the arena. What was this specific segment like in person?
Interesting and unique, but then again, that has been Bray's persona for eons and eons. But when Uncle Howdy came out, at least everybody in my section was starting to, half of us were chanting Cameron Grimes, and the other half was chanting Bo Dallas. And we were, expecting that the mask will come off and we'll finally figure it out who it is. And nope, just an Uncle Howdy laugh for from what we counted, about 45 seconds to a minute.
They sure like to, that's the thing. Even whenever The Fiend, first debuted, and they had that specific music, like that cringy, I can't do it. Like, obviously I can't impersonate it, but if you're familiar with The Fiend, you know that specific tune, that melody that would come on every single time The Fiend would appear. And like this, with that, you can kind of compare them. Like, if they would only do it for 10, 15 seconds, cool. Like, then, all right, we get it. You're not hammering it into our heads and making us sick to our stomach, and, we want it to end. I feel like WWE has that. It's a really bad habit when it comes to things like that. Like, they could give you a little bit of it and it still makes the point, but they like to hammer it home. It basically becomes overkill to an extent, and I've seen that happen several times with several other things, but I just had to get your opinion on that. I was really curious because I've been to several events where things like that happen. Like, I remember the first SmackDown I ever went to. It was actually last summer or something like that, whenever the fans were first allowed back after COVID. And Finn Balor was there, and he did his little entrance before he was, in Judgment Day or anything like that, where he points to the crowd and the white lights come on. I was blown away with how bright that was, like being there in person. So I know that some things do look different whenever you're there to, being on TV. And the fact that tonight, or I guess today, whenever I watch this, the Bray Wyatt entrance just really jumped off the screen to me. So I was curious. But John, what do you got on this?
Well, this one, of course, it still has me interested in everything like that. The thing I am curious about is, of course, who is the person behind the Uncle Howdy mask, and of course, who's the other one behind the second mask as well. Who's the one that's playing or running those strings, I guess you could say. But LA Knight, he definitely looked like he was totally confused whenever he was outside of the ring. And then they panned over to Bray Wyatt, and he looked kind of confused too in the ring at the end of that little segment. So that's what I was kind of curious about. Was there anything like that happened after that, Charlie?
There was nothing else that happened after that.
Lights just turn off. They move on to the next thing. That is one thing that you kind of notice once you're there. But
yeah, it was just weird because Bray, he was just kind of doing the little side to side, looking both ways. So I was kind of curious, maybe he doesn't know exactly what's going on, but just mind games, I guess you could say.
Just with the vibes I was getting from LA Knight in that segment, I thought that maybe he would try to go after Howdy. The fact that he was just so fired up, calling out Bray Wyatt, like, no, I've been attacked. Even the camera angle they showed right before commercial break, whenever they were teasing LA Knight coming out and having a little bit of a segment, they showed him walking backstage. He looked pissed off, and I legitimately was like, oh damn, like, I wouldn't want to get in his way right now. And I've never really felt that way about LA Knight, but whenever you show the footage, like WWE showed us a little video package of him being attacked week after week, you see why I guess you see why you could believe that it would build up like that and make someone, be unapproachable. Like, no, get out of my way. I'm on a mission here to kick somebody's ass, and this is what I'm going to do here. But anyways, I am looking forward to seeing this continue on, man. It is getting juicy and juicy every single week. Yeah. But up next, we're going to talk about the match that was probably, the show stealer, the main match of the night, which is the Intercontinental Championship between Ricochet and Gunther. Adam Pearce is shown at the very beginning. He removes Giovanni Vinci and Ludwig Kaiser from ringside, so it is a true one-on-one match, which you could always appreciate. Samantha Irvin was actually praised for her delivery and just her introductions, like for this specific match. She received a lot of praise on Twitter. I noticed that. She was retweeting them and all that stuff. She probably does every week. But for a match like this, with Ricochet, with this type of stake, she loves to pronounce the name Gunther. I've noticed that. So you do see the WWE universe appreciating her, giving her flowers. So that's always good because, people like that, they travel with the WWE. They miss the time with their family damn near just as much as a lot of the superstars do. Not all of them, but some of them. And, you just like to see them get a little bit of appreciation as well, because they don't get the spotlight, the TV time, all that stuff. You hear their voice. but they're very rarely on TV, especially somebody as visually pleasing as Samantha Irvin.
Oh, yeah.
WWE is doing themselves a disservice by not having her in the ring, kind of just like they used to with Lillian Garcia. Just kind of, they need to bring back exposing those women and giving them more of a personality, a little bit more of a character and part of the show, because I do feel like it adds to the product in general. But let's get into this match here. One thing I wrote down here at the very beginning, I don't know if Gunther was trying to put Ricochet in the full Nelson, not the full Nelson, sorry. The Boston Crab, it's like a Walls of Jericho type, not quite exactly the same, but it's one of those moves.
You're listening to the WWE Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
So guys, I know that you love podcasts. You're listening to one right now. But there's another one that I want you to check out, and it has really caught my attention. It's called Joculation. That's Joculation for those that are looking to type it out. So what this is, it features original comedy based off current events from some of the weird news sections like Toronto Sun, Daily Star, the LAD Bible, etc. This show has over 100 episodes, and it really is a must listen. And in their latest episode, they were talking about a woman who was threatening to burn down a pub at a Christmas event with Santa and his reindeer. She was an animal rights activist. You really gotta check this out. Again, guys, it is hosted by LP Faust. It's called Joculation. And what I want to do is give you a quick 30-second sample of this show, and I'd really encourage you go and check it out. You can find them, by the way, everywhere podcasts are available, all the major platforms like Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeart, Overcast, Downcast, etc. So check it out. I'm also putting a link to the show in the description of this episode. So take a listen to this, guys. It's called Joculation. Go check it out, and here it is.
So apparently Martha Stewart, she now has come into a new television show because Martha needs money. At one point, Martha's walking around with a ruler measuring like forks and knives, the distance from like spoons and cups and soup bowls and all that stuff. I'd rather it be a tablescape, ladders, and chairs match. That's what I'm thinking, bro. Have somebody come into the ring with a foreign object, maybe take the steel chair and slap it across Martha Stewart's face. That would be excellent, okay? Tablescapes, ladders, and chairs match. Oh, my.
Welcome back to the WWE Podcast. Let's get back to more great wrestling audio.
And as he was getting him in there, Michael Cole said it looked like he was getting him in the STFU. Now, to some people, that might just go right over their head. Might go in one ear, out the other. They might not care. But that was John Cena's old finishing move, his submission, the STFU, which you know what that stands for. And eventually, like when WWE was full on in the PG era, they dropped the U and they called it the STF or the something like that. I forgot exactly what it was because he did have the FU, which was renamed the Attitude Adjustment, the AA or whatever. And they switched the STFU to the STF. And it's something small. I know that a lot of people, like I said, probably didn't even notice this. They didn't even catch it. But I heard Michael Cole very clearly pronounce that. And it did. It kind of, if I were a dog, it made my ears perk up a little bit. I was like, dang, it felt good to hear that, especially from Michael Cole, who, covered John Cena back during those heydays. But anyways, back to the actual match and the action here. There were a lot of spots. Like this match was 17 minutes long. It was definitely a slow-paced, really physical, gruesome match. Like I know Ricochet's probably feeling it right now. He's definitely pretty sore.
Oh yeah.
There were a lot of power bombs that he actually kicked out of. I will say I give him a lot of credit here. He kicks out of a power bomb, and then these two exchange some slaps to the face. They kind of go back and forth here. Gunther does hit the Last Symphony to pick up the win and continue his dominant run as the Intercontinental Champion. How was the in-person experience for this match? For a 17-minute match, it is easy to kind of, get a little bit, I guess, fatigued. But was the crowd able to stay into it for the entirety of this match?
Oh, yes. And Cole wasn't the only one that noticed the STFU. Weirdly enough, as soon as I'm going to be the only person that still does this, as soon as Walter actually got the move on it, got the STFU on Ricochet, there was a lot of Cena chants being put or going on for that, which I don't know if they were able to mute that out or not. But no, that not only was that the match of the night, my view, That was the match of the year.
It definitely delivered. I will say there were a lot of good spots in it. There wasn't like a whole lot of spots you could point your finger at and say, ooh, that was a botch, or that just was a little bit sloppy. Like, both of these dudes brought their A game. They knew what the stakes were in this specific one. Ricochet obviously earning this opportunity, having gone through the World Cup to be the SmackDown World Cup, whatever the first ever one on Fox, however they like to phrase it. But either way, he went through, basically a gauntlet to get to this point, whereas it's almost like the old school Mortal Kombat games. When you got to fight all the guys, and at the very top, yeah, it's Shao Kahn just sitting there waiting for you, and good luck beating him. That's kind of what the Intercontinental picture was like here recently, because Ricochet went through all these guys, Santos Escobar, Braun Strowman, the list goes on, and now he has to go up against Gunther, where you knew the odds were stacked against him. It's just, whenever they removed Imperium, the rest of them, you thought, oh, well, yeah, we've seen crazier things happen. But as the match kind of went on, and Gunther just kind of, he turned it up just one more notch at the very end. That's kind of like throughout the duration of a match, you switch gears. At the very beginning, you're kind of going slow, a lot of elbow and collarbone locks, all that stuff, a little bit of grappling. And then as the match progresses, it's a lot more shots. People kind of going for their finishing moves, their signatures. They're trying to, actually put the match away. And at the very end, it seems like Gunther just had one more gear that he was able to hit that Ricochet just was not able to overcome. But hey, shout out to Ricochet. He definitely is having one of his better years, you could say, in and out of the ring. He's just one of the guys that, is probably prime for a pretty big year as we get there. But Imperium does come out. They start to, try to jump him a little bit. It's what you expect's going to happen. Out comes Braun Strowman to save the day for Ricochet and basically just tease us like, all right, Ricochet's put away. This is who's next. Braun Strowman, likely Gunther's next opponent. What are your thoughts on this whole thing, John?
Well, I do like this, that it did come out to be a true one-on-one. It definitely made it seem like it was a lot more serious, I guess you could say. But like you said, both these men, they definitely beat the heck out of each other. You saw like I guess you could say like welts on the back of Ricochet's back and everything. And of course those chops, man. They're just brutal. It sounds freaking horrible on TV. So I can't even imagine what it is to actually take one, right off. But I do like that Braun, he did come out to be like the savior of this. So, of course, we're going to get something between him and Gunther along the way. But, yeah, that was a good way to end it.
It really was. Moving on to another match here, a triple threat for the number one contenders spot for the tag team championships, which are held obviously by the Usos. This one is between Legado del Fantasma, Viking Raiders, and Hit Row. Everyone is talking about one specific spot in this entire match that stole the show here. And it was obviously Top Dollar, him doing that suicide dive, which almost was literally a suicide dive over the top rope. Yeah. Just terrible time. That's the thing, is he went on Twitter. He said that, hey, my leg gave out, which, hey, that might be true, but I know a bad time jump when I see one, like if you are watching somebody play basketball and they go up for a rebound and they time it terribly, that. You're like, oh, dang, he went up way too late for that. It's obvious. Same thing with football. Anytime you have to jump up off the ground, it's obvious whenever somebody messes it up. And I feel like, yeah, Top Dollar was trying to cover it up a little bit, but at the same time, you might need to do a little bit of looking in the mirror in that point and just realize, yeah, I messed that up. All the guys on the outside of the ring still fell down somehow, probably from laughter, if I were going to, guess myself. But I do feel like I just don't know what it is, obviously, that people see in Hit Row. I've mentioned it. They're not really good in the ring. I feel like they are just exactly what I've said in recent weeks, just a Disney Channel rap group who is very, I guess, I don't know what word I want to use, but like it's not my cup of tea. I will say that. And they're getting a lot of crap like over the internet as well, which I don't want to say I was pleased to see, but at the same time, I did feel a little bit vindicated that I wasn't alone on this island, because I have been pretty harsh and very much so on the opposite side of Hit Row. They do not belong in the tag team championship picture for sure. So I don't even need, I'm sure that match happened in the taping, and I don't need you to tell me who won. I would go put money on right now. I already know who won. So, Hit Row they're not on the Usos level, and I'm not really sure I know Triple H is really high on this group. Obviously, he's the one that brought them back. But they don't do it for me, and I'm sure there's a lot of other fans who agree, which I know there's a lot who don't. There are fans who no, I really enjoy Hit Row, and I'm not saying you're wrong at all. Like, everybody has a right to feel whatever they like, and feel certain ways for, certain programs. I'm not telling you to agree with me. I'm just simply saying, like, this is why I'm not a fan of this. And it's just constantly something with these guys where if it is like bad in ring, like it was tonight where he almost hurt himself and, probably some other guys, it's just cringy stuff on the mic. It's not for me, but what do y'all think?
You are not the only person I know that hates Hit Row. I do myself, always have, always will. And funny enough, as soon as they came out, everybody was chanting, well, it rhymes with hit, but everybody was chanting, blank row, blank row, and please go away, please go away. And unfortunately, we were also chanting at least a good portion of the night, this match sucks, which is unfortunate because I love the Viking Raiders and I love Phantasma. I can't pronounce the group's first name, but it was bad. It was just a bad match. And then when Top Dollar had his botch, we were all chanting, "You bleeped up! You bleeped up!"
Yep. Not a kid friendly chant section, but hey, I'm with it. It was just when it comes to, voicing your opinion, all that stuff. But I will say though, Legado del Fantasma, as bad as Top Dollar's dive over the top rope was, their dual, like, corkscrew spin off the turnbuckles, that was just as good as Top Dollar's was bad. So at least the people were rewarded with that spot. But yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah, on this one, man, I definitely felt like, I don't know, they tried to give each of the teams, some good spotlight, some good momentum and everything like that. So, I guess that was right. I do feel like I stepped on my own toe because last week I did say, like, of course, Hit Row, they got me on that little hook, I guess you could say. And, of course, I wouldn't even say it was more of, like, Top Dollar side, I guess. He goes and just makes me look bad in my own way, I guess you could say. Because, that, like you said, it looked like it was just timed wrong. The whole watching till the falling down, Ivar, I think he had like the worst one. I don't even know why I would have just looked at him like, come on, dude, at least something, but it was just bad. So yeah, definitely, yeah, like I said, stepped on my own toe with that, but yeah, can't really say that this did anything for me, but did make me look bad in a way, I guess.
Well, what about up next, Raquel? She was backstage and she was attacked brutally by Ronda Rousey and Shayna, ironically, as she's saying that the doctor is cautious, was the word she used about her return to the ring for this gauntlet match next week that's going to determine Ronda Rousey's next opponent for her SmackDown Women's Championship. And as this happened, like before the attack was going on and they were interviewing her, I was like, okay, like I've been watching this long enough to know, like, leading up to Royal Rumble season, whenever there's only 30 people who enter that match, there's going to be about 4 people who WWE is focusing on. Now, there's going to actually, like, the spotlight's going to be on all 30, but look closer, right? Separate the trees from the forest, and you'll see that they're really focusing on, like, a handful, and those are the real people who have a shot to win. And I thought there was a little bit of that in this segment, whereas I was like, okay, they're talking about a gauntlet. There's going to be several women. Obviously, Raquel's more than worthy of being a number 1 contender for a championship. She has that underdog story being injured. So I was like, okay, here we go. Like, I'm going to put money. I'm going to talk about this on the show, how much I believe that Raquel is going to be the one to win. And then as these thoughts are going through my head, she's attacked by Shayna and Ronda. Take her out. Pretty brutal. Like, this was one of those things where I was like, oh man, this was kind of ugly. Like, had blood in, blood out vibes when they dropped Crucito on the fire hydrant, on the back. I was like, oh man, just, hard to watch. Kind of got to turn away. But it was tough. Shout out to Raquel, though, whenever she does get healthy and get a chance to get her hands on these women. Like, they're making you want to see Ronda and Shayna get their ass kicked. And I got to say, it's working. Like, it really is. They're going through all these women, whether it is Liv Morgan, Shotzi, now Raquel. Like, they just keep on putting these women on the shelf, and they're making you want somebody to do it. Who's going to be the one that whether gets called up from NXT or steps up from the actual SmackDown women's division? Is it going to be Charlotte who comes back? Somebody like that? I don't really know what to expect. The division itself, the SmackDown women's division, I feel like it's probably one of the more divisions with a question mark around it than any in the entire WWE. So You really don't know what to expect here. It does look like with Shayna Baszler at her side, Ronda does have a little bit of like who is going to beat her. Like she seems almost unstoppable at this point. But what are your thoughts, John?
Well, I mean, on this, man, I get the, I guess you could say, boost for Raquel and everything like that. I mean, we get that Shotzi's hurt, and that's what she's trying to get the revenge for and everything like that. But I'm still not behind the Ronda and Shayna. I mean, of course, I mean, yeah, like you said, it makes it seem like it's a little bit more believable and everything like that. It just feels like it's just a gimmick, you know? I mean, of course, they're two badasses, I guess you could say, that, I mean, come together and make a good team. But, I mean, it's just hard to believe that they're going to be anything, I guess you could say. I mean, of course, I said last week that it'd be good for them to be a tag team, actual tag team, you know, going up against for the tag team belts and stuff like that. But for Shayna just to be like the little workhorse and stuff like that, I just can't get behind it, I guess you could say.
Totally feel it. What do you think, Charlie?
Yeah, I would absolutely have to agree. This is, as much as I would eventually love to see a Shayna, you know, Ronda match, unfortunately, now's not the time. And I'm trying to think of what else to say here. But yeah, as soon as, well, granted, like Rocky, or as I call her, Rocky got a very, very nice pop from the crowd, even though she wasn't there that night, or there last night, even though I'm not going to say anything about what else happened. But yeah, everybody was, even weirdly enough, where I was sitting, everybody was chanting, "Ronda, go away, Ronda, go away."
Yeah, I would have joined in.
Yeah,
I would have.
She deserves it.
I would have had to take a nice swig before that one, so I could have, chanted that loud and proud. But hey, I like the little tease there. I like I guess the hook. Hey, tune in next week. You might be pleased with what you see. So I do like to see that. It's gonna help me go through this next week. But we do have one more segment to get here, the main event of the show, and it's the Bloodline. Who else? Roman Reigns comes to the ring with all of the other members. Sami Zayn looking fly. Both of the Usos, obviously dressed the same. They're wearing, I love that shirt though.
Oh yeah.
That they were wearing.
Island Relevancy.
Yeah, the Island of Relevancy. I really love that shirt. That one really jumped out. But anyways, Roman mentions that he has not seen the rest of the Bloodline since War Games, which is pretty surprising, but it is true now that I'm thinking about it. Or at least all of them together or something like that. I don't really know exactly what he said word for word. But he daps all of them up one by one and then talks about his upcoming match with he and Sami Zayn taking on Kevin Owens and a mystery partner, which that was announced earlier in the night by Paul Heyman and Adam Pearce. They come up, and I'm not sure exactly how I mentioned or how I missed that. It was a segment earlier in the night where Jimmy, he talks to Roman backstage. He basically says that he really likes Sami. He likes the idea of Sami Zayn becoming a quote-unquote official Uso, but he also loves their family, and he essentially tells Roman that he's going to support his decision regardless. And Roman tells Paul Heyman to call Adam Pearce to the locker room or whatever. Adam Pearce shows up, and Heyman makes him a suggestion. That is, Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn will take on Kevin Owens and a mystery partner of his choice. And Pearce almost immediately agrees and then basically says, when are we going to do this? Y'all want to do this tonight? Roman starts to think, and then Paul Heyman says, no, we need to do this on network television on Fox. He didn't say it. I'm going to say it on the A show. SmackDown, December 30th, the final episode of SmackDown to close out the new year, or to close out 2022. And I do believe that is going to be the perfect spot for this match. So that's something you can look forward to. But now that we're caught back up here a little bit, basically Roman he starts talking about Sami Zayn and him having a tag team match against Kevin Owens and a mystery partner. Sami Zayn starts to trash Kevin Owens, but he does slip up a little bit by saying that he, referring to himself, is Kevin Owens' only friend. And immediately you see all the other Bloodline kind of raise an eyebrow. They're like, well, what did you just say? Like, did you really just say that? Roman Reigns just has this straight look on his face.
Dead look.
Sami Zayn almost immediately corrects himself, starts to kind of walk it back. He basically quickly clarifies and says that he misspoke. He meant to say that he was his only friend. But that pretty much all gets pushed to the side. It really doesn't get addressed because clearly something happens. It's almost like if you're having a conversation at your lunch table and somebody says something completely crazy and it gets everybody's attention, if at the very next table somebody drops their lunch tray on the ground and it makes a huge sound, you're going to forget what that person just said and you're going to be distracted for a little bit. Well, in the form of a lunch tray, I guess, it's John Cena on the Jumbotron. And he basically accepts the challenge or the request that Kevin Owens had texted him. He said, hey, you haven't had a match this year in 2022. However, you've had 20 straight years in WWE with a match. 2002, I believe, all the way to 2021, you need to have a match. We're creeping up on the end of 2022. Are you going to let the streak end? John Cena's not going to let the streak end. He does accept, like I just mentioned, Kevin Owens' request, and we're going to get it on December 30th. Tag team, Kevin Owens and John Cena versus Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn. Does come full circle given that the main roster debut of Kevin Owens was attacking John Cena. Pretty crazy. I do enjoy that. The whole dynamic where the following week, Kevin Owens came on TV and he said that his son was only concerned with John Cena after he attacked him. Like Kevin Owens' son was like, hey, is John Cena okay? And that was just the ultimate, like, Kevin Owens being a full heel. So that's kind of immediately what I thought about seeing these two tag together. It's going to be a little bit weird at first, but I love seeing Cena. Love seeing him on SmackDown. This is going to be a pretty good match to close out the year. Without a doubt, I imagine the ratings are going to go through the roof. But what was the crowd experience like? Because I'm pretty sure that, you guys also probably went through the roof once you got the visual of John Cena on the Jumbotron.
Oh, my Lanta. It was not quite I think my ears are still ringing from how loud not only the building was, but myself was. But yeah, there were talks while in the building that there is going to be a big surprise. Somebody big is coming tonight. There is going to be somebody big, and we all figured that, it's going to be KO. KO is going to be here. And there were some people, including myself, that Cody Rhodes is going to be here or Randy Orton's going to be here. But I would rather have Cena show up any day of the week. But yeah, this is going to be it is definitely, like you said, it is definitely going to be a big match. And if only I could afford to go to Tampa. If only I could.
John?
Well, I agree with you. I guarantee this is going to be a popper for the end of the year and everything like that. It is kind of crazy that, John Cena was announced that he was going to be at this SmackDown on the 30th, but I didn't think it was going to be at all involved with the bloodline in any way. But him being added into that, of course, it's going to hook everybody, get us on board for next week to stay tuned and everything. And I felt like the past 3 SmackDowns have been like top shows, I guess you could say. I know watching Raw and everything like that, and I get kind of burnt out on that, like the 3 hours of it. So, for everything to be jam-packed in the 2 hours, I feel like it's just, we're just getting a lot more out of SmackDown than what we think in the end of it, I guess you could say. So it's definitely like the storylines that are like going longer, I guess you could say, like Royal Rumble and everything like that. So yeah, definitely in for a good treat next week, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I agree. I think to end the year, we're going to have a couple pretty good episodes of SmackDown, but I do believe this was a pretty good episode of the SmackDown review because we did have the privilege of being joined by Charlie. That does do it for this episode, though. However, I do want to apologize for you guys for the delay. This was me and John's fault, technically, because we had our company Christmas party last night, so our schedule was kind of thrown off. And then it was a little bit late being uploaded to Hulu this morning, so we weren't able to record, obviously, for like 3 hours after we originally scheduled. So I do want to appreciate Charlie for, being flexible with his schedule and still joining us, despite obviously us starting a little bit late. I want to apologize to Matt, obviously, for throwing the schedule off a little bit, but I do believe the episode was worth it. Anytime you can have an in-person guest or, someone who has the in-person experience, on the show, that always adds to it. But do you have any shout outs, any plugs, anything like that, Charlie, before we let you go?
Nope.
John, anything?
Well, I'd like to just say, of course, shout out to all the listeners and everything like that. And I know Christmas is coming up and we're not going to catch on till after that and everything like that. So Merry Christmas, everybody. Merry Christmas to everybody out there. Sorry. And if you're traveling or anything like that, be safe and everything. And of course, Discord members, it was good, seeing everybody's reactions to the show and everything last night. So it kind of gave me a good little recap on everything that had happened before we even got to watch the show. I mean, given just the circumstances and everything like that. But also, shout out to you, Mike, of course, football function and everything like that.
Appreciate it.
Keep doing your thing over there. It's rocking. So, yeah, we're almost at that Super Bowl time. So it's about to be jumping over there.
Yeah, it really is, man. Things are going to get pretty interesting, but we are at the light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm very thankful for that. But one more time, thank you so much, Charlie, for joining us. Thank all the listeners out there.
Sir, appreciate you.
Subscribe on Patreon. Join the party. Obviously, we don't have a PLE for a while, but once the Royal Rumble comes, John and I are going to be there in person, but I know that the Discord is really going to be, up and jumping once the, entrants are coming out left and right. So just stay tuned for that, but a lot of good stuff between now and then. So obviously, thank you guys so much for listening. Have a damn good rest of your weekend. Walk passionately in the direction of your dreams, and I will talk to you soon.
So, guys, I know that you love podcasts. You're listening to one right now. But there's another one that I want you to check out, and it has really caught my attention. It's called Joculation. That's Joculation for those that are looking to type it out. So what this is, it features original comedy based off current events from some of the weird news sections like Toronto Sun, Daily Star, the LAD Bible, etc. This show has over 100 episodes, and it really is a must listen. And in their latest episode, they were talking about a woman who was threatening to burn down a pub at a Christmas event with Santa and his reindeer. She was an animal rights activist. You really got to check this out. Again, guys, it is hosted by LP Faust. It's called Joculation. And what I want to do is give you a quick 30-second sample of this show, and I'd really encourage you go and check it out. You can find them, by the way, everywhere podcasts are available, all the major platforms like Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeart, Overcast, Downcast, etc. So check it out. I'm also putting a link to the show in the description of this episode. So take a listen to this, guys. It's called Joculation. Go check it out, and here it is.
So apparently Martha Stewart, she now has come into a new television show because Martha needs money. At one point, Martha's walking around with a ruler measuring like forks and knives and the distance from like spoons and cups and soup bowls and all that stuff. I'd rather it be a tablescape, ladders, and chairs match. That's what I'm thinking, bro. Have somebody come into the ring with a foreign object, maybe take the steel chair and slap it across Martha Stewart's face. That would be excellent, okay? Tablescapes, ladders, and chairs match. Oh, my.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.